Greetings, this is Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. I am here on campus at Eastern Michigan, joined by Scott Wetherbee. Scott is the Vice President and Director of Athletics here at Eastern Michigan. Greetings, Scott. Thanks for having me on campus.
Thanks for having me. Welcome.
Yes, sir. It's a beautiful campus, and I guess since you've been here, there have been a lot of upgrades and changes here at Eastern Michigan. You've been in the profession for, I guess, about 20 years, Mississippi State, San Diego, Fresno. I mean, you've been at a number of different places, mostly working in external operations. So there's a level of creativity, and there's also a level of understanding the importance of revenue when you talk about college athletics. So, I mean, there got to be a couple of highlights you would want to talk about when you talk about the length of time you've been here for 4 years and some of the things you were able to accomplish here at Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, just in the 4 years, it's been a special time. You know, I was fortunate that there's a lot of foundation laid with Dr. Gregg and Heather Like, and then to be able to follow them up. But in those 4 years, you know, we've been able to build a $20+ million student athlete performance center, which really helped all of our student athletes and really had a ripple effect throughout the department to be able to move offices and consolidate a little bit and give us a lot of room and a new weight room and sports medicine and those things. We're finalizing the drawings on an $8 million golf facility. And so these are two major building projects for the first time in 20 years. You know, we're sitting in the Convocation Center, was really the last major construction project that athletics did, and that was in 1999. And so it's been 20+ years.
Wow, since they
and so it's exciting to be able to have two really good projects, and you know, we're going to try to continue that.
Yeah, you mentioned Heather Like, you mentioned Dr. Gregg, there's even Gene Smith. When you become a leader of an organization, CEO of a corporate entity, president of university, athletics director over a department of athletics, you're kind of the custodian of the history of the institution, but you're also the architect of the future, right? And when you talk about the Gene Smiths, you talk about Derek Gregg, you talk about Heather Like, they're all Power 5 FBS, really elephants in the profession now. And now you're in this chair here at Eastern Michigan. And I wonder how that, you know, being the custodian of the history of a school like Eastern Michigan who has produced those athletic directors, but then you're also the architect of the future. And you just mentioned some of the upgrades. How does that affect your decision-making, your leadership in the chair?
Well, I think one thing I have to recognize immediately is that because of them, I'm allowed to do the things that I've been able to do.
Right.
They laid that foundation and created a culture to allow me to basically take it and then try to run with it and do better. And you're right, it's my job to almost not disappoint them in a way. You know, they turned over the keys, and now it's my job to try to make it a little bit better and newer and prettier along the way. And so I take a lot of pride in that. And the good thing is I also have a bat phone, right? I can call them if I need to. And I've reached out to Heather on occasion, you know, and I get to see Gene and Derek at functions and stuff. And so we get to talk, and they, you know, they appreciate what I've done from afar. And, you know, I'd love to have them back to campus to show them the things that we've done. But I take it to heart. And again, at the end of the day, when you have your student athletes in mind, whether you're building things or working on your budget, but it does mean a lot that I think over these 4 years, we've done a good job. We can always be better. And obviously went through a really tough time here the last 18 months. But we're going to come out even better, and adversity is good for us, and be stronger from it.
Yeah, you talk about making those decisions. I wonder about, I mean, you got to think about the hard decisions, the decisions that aren't as hard because they're all benefit student athletes. Some of the decisions that you've had to make here have been tough, decisions that you've probably been through as a student athlete yourself. But thinking about working in external for as long as you have, external operations, I wonder how that guides some of your decisions, because you're able to look at something and you operate with two things in mind. A, how does this benefit student athletes? But then also B, how can we bring in the revenue to benefit those student athletes when you're working external, as long as you have starting and tickets and those type of things. I wonder how those things influence some of the choices you have to make, whether they be challenging or whether they be great decisions for building facilities, whatever they are.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think one of the challenges as an athletic director right now is it's always seeming like they're coming to you to cut things. You know,
that's tough.
Drop back on your budget. I need you to cut 5% or 10% or whatever that may be. And I am of the positive mindset that the glass is half full here, and that we we actually need to be aggressive and proactive to help drive revenue. And so, it might be, hey, what are we doing to cut expenses? And I'm turning around saying, no, what are we doing to drive revenue? And so that's my external mindset. And it's hard not to get bogged down with the getting beat up on a budget. No matter, I don't care who you are this year, we're all stressing about it. And I'm actually probably in a better place than, the Power Five that are losing tens of 20s of millions of dollars, which, my budget isn't that big. So I'm not losing, that size of revenue this year. But that external mindset, I've got to be thinking about, one, how am I creating a great atmosphere for our fans that they want to come back at an affordable price? We're not trying to price ourselves out of anything, but we're trying to generate revenue. How can I fundraise? I mean, we've had a record-breaking 4 years. In my time, it's been, about 16 million over 4 years. I could argue that in the 20 years prior, they never raised 16. So we've done a lot in 4 years, and we got to continue that, though, because things are still getting older and you need new things, and our student athletes deserve it, and from whether it's nutrition or mental health, we have a lot of that issues and things that we need to work on, frankly. And so I need to go out and continue to do that. So I'm always kind of forward thinking, and I'm that type of person in our vice president meetings on campus about, well, what are we doing as opposed to cutting? What are we doing to, like, what should we invest in? Because we do got to spend some money to go make it too, and getting creative that way.
Yeah, it's the nature of athletics, right? How can we succeed? I do wonder, for example, if the president or whoever is talking to you about cutting, how do they receive that when you say, well, we could do that, or we could try this, which would, how have those conversations been?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is proof, right? Is showing, and it might be on a small scale to get you to a bigger scale. And, it's like, look, help me with a $25,000 investment in this, and I'll show you the return is that. Right. And then you show it, and then they start to trust you a little bit more and say, okay, now here's the next step, and here's how we get there. And then again, it's relationships with, whether it's your third-party media rights holder, or, how are we driving our ticket sales, spending a little bit more money on marketing. The university's actually done a pretty good job of focusing their marketing efforts on a certain group of students right now with the pandemic, and how do we get them online and be able to generate revenue. And so they realize too. So you can show them what other places have done, or you can give them little nuggets. And then, over a 4-year period of time, I hope I've shown them that I'm a good steward with money, and that we have actually gotten a good return on our investment, depending on whatever that may be. And then obviously, if we can win, and make a difference there, that certainly helps drive revenue.
Yeah, and speaking about winning, you think about decisions that you had to make in terms of coaches. You've hired 9 coaches, I believe, most recently the men's basketball coach.
Correct.
And you want to bring the people here who will help student athletes succeed on and off the field, court, pool, whatever it is, right? I was talking to Terry Toomey recently, and he said, I look at it in terms of, who are the teachers we're going to bring to educate our student athletes? Who are we bringing in this classroom, which is athletics? So talk about your philosophy on hiring and the people you look at and the process you go through in researching.
Yeah, that must have been a great interview. Terry's awesome, great personality, and I had spent a number of years at Fresno State, so I love what he's doing there, and he's had to make some tough decisions. Now I forgot what you asked me.
Well, it was just basically hiring, evaluating process, research.
Yeah, sorry. So, I agree. I mean, we're at an institution at Eastern Michigan that we talk about building champions for life, and this isn't just champions to go on to the NBA or go to the NFL or go play for professional baseball or whatever the sport may be, right? This is a place and an opportunity, that we want you to succeed 20 years from now because you got a degree, you were a leader, you did stuff in your community. And so those are the types of coaches, a well-rounded that cares about their student athletes. I'm good with tough love, but they better know you care, and they better know that you love them, but that we're also recognizing whether it's a red flag of there might be some mental health issues, or that we, whatever it may be, when we're looking for coaches, integrity and character is at the top of our list. They need to be a right fit. And then we need to make sure that we're bringing in somebody that wants to make Eastern Michigan, the whole university, better, our student athletes better. And, we have to be that, we always say front porch. We need to be out there because we are the ones on ESPN or in the newspaper or whatever, and they're looking at us. And so, and hiring the coaches that I have, I mean, they realize that they're going to get a lot of support from me, and I care about them and I want them to be successful. That's why I hired them. And that's why they wanted to come work here. But they also know it's a challenge. I mean, we have budget challenges, and, we've had to be creative. But at the end of the day, they know that we have their back, because it's my job to make that student athlete experience even better than what they promised to a recruit. And that's usually what I tell a parent. I like, my job, if I'm really supporting our women's basketball team and I'm sitting with a recruit, then my job is to make Coach Castro, give him all the tools he needs to be even more successful than what he's promised them.
Right.
And so that's kind of my mindset every day when we go through that.
I wonder, some of the things you said, the integrity, caring for kids, they probably need to know the game that they're sport that they're coaching. How do you research the things that aren't readily visible, right? I mean, obviously you might know some people who know them, but in terms of, interview may not tell you everything. What is your research process?
Yeah, I would say, one, you do have to trust your gut, right? I mean, when we're having conversations, I can get to know what kind of person you are and you ask the right kinds of questions, and almost setting them up for a failure situation in a way, right? Because then you're like, how are they going to respond to that? You do trust the industry, right? You make the conversations, you make the calls to people that you trust, just like they call me. I've had some call and say, hey, what have you heard about this person or that person? What do you know about them? And those are the kind of reference checks that I like to look for. And then if you truly have that core group that has your back and vice versa, then they'll tell you the honest truth about somebody, and we figure it out. And then you do look back at their history, right? And you look for, even if it's calling the NCAA to see if there's anything in the background. We use search firms to have conversations with, hey, can you do a little background check more than what we're just doing? To make sure I'm not getting something that, wasn't as advertised. And so again, it goes back to relationships. And then at the end of the day, you kind of got to trust your gut.
Yeah. And there's a rigor to it. I do wonder, Champions for Life, I'm gonna dig into that just a little deeper. You do your research, you talk to them, they sound good, they feel good. And you mentioned sometimes you want to throw a curveball question, see how can they fail the question, which shows you a little bit more about them. Like, somebody who's been coaching for 30 years, would you ask them something like, can you name 2 or 3 players from 15 years ago who are doing well now, right? Because that type of question ties into your Champions for Life, right? And you want this person to come on to be thinking future. Have you ever dug in like that to see it?
It's interesting. I have not been as fortunate to have coaches apply for our jobs that have had 25 or 30 years of coaching.
Yeah.
Coach Heath may be the most fortunate most senior as far as the experience typically at Eastern. Like I said, it's somebody moving up, but it's that relationship. I remember having a few different interviews of, tell me, the favorite thing about being a coach. And when the comment comes back, some of my favorite times are when our student athletes invite me to their wedding. Or they send me, hey, my middle name of my son or daughter is named after you, because that's the impact you have. Those are the type of people that we want, and it's, look, I want to win more than anybody. I'm uber competitive and don't like to lose. And, at Eastern Michigan, we won more championships than anybody else in the MACs. It's something we're really proud of. But at the end of the day, I want us to just love our kids, care about them, that they get their degree. That, again, that's why community service is so important, because it says who we are and what we're about, and we've got to give back to then receive. And so that's just, to me, that's just the way I go about when it comes to our coaches.
Yeah, and you can see that. And it's somebody saying something about a wedding or naming their kid, that's you can see they buy into the thing you put together here at Eastern Michigan. I wonder about staff, though. I mean, you want them to buy into the same thing, right? Because the decisions they make as staff affect the decisions and the things that the student athletes have the ability to do and the resources they have. Talk to about the evaluation, I guess the intensity of evaluating who you want to hire and bring around you in terms of staff.
So I'm very inclusive with my senior leadership team, right? This is not Scott Wetherbee show. This is all of us that are together. I'm asking for input. Very, very rarely do I have to basically put my foot down and say, this is the decision that I'm making. This is usually for the most part, a group effort. And so when we're interviewing, doesn't matter what the position is, we try to have a nice itinerary that's a cross section.
Right.
And then I certainly love to have some one-on-one, and I try to meet with everybody that we're looking at hiring, only so they can see what kind of leadership style I have, to ask the types of questions to see, how do I lead a department? How is the interaction with our staff? Is this a place where you're going to come and people are disgruntled, or actually are they, really happy to come into work? And,
right.
And so I always try to tell people I'm a servant leader, and Mitch Barnhart stepped it up a little bit and said we have to be sacrificial leaders. Yeah. And so I try to sacrifice and do things, and it's for our staff and our student athletes, and they feel that, right? I don't pay well. That's just the nature of Eastern, and it is what it is.
College athletics, actually.
But it is, but they also know that I'm there, right? At the end of the day, they can walk down the hall, or I can come see them, and I'm there to support them. And ultimately, if you're only here for 2 years, or you're here for 5, or you're here longer than that, they know that I'm going to try to help them along the way. And those are my favorite things. We talk about, student athletes calling back and say, hey, will you come to my wedding or whatever. My favorite is, I've got this crew, especially like my Mississippi State crew. I built a whole external team, and they're reaching out to me because there's new job opportunities, and they were asking for advice. And I love it. Your heart just fills. That, and so that's kind of my style when it comes to hiring. Again, it's almost the same checklist as hiring coaches. When it comes to, again, character and integrity and work ethic,
right.
and understanding that you're going to come here and work your tail off, but if you do a really good job, you're going to have a lot of other opportunities. We turn over a lot of people at Eastern Michigan, and I will tell you, it's not because they're unhappy. They're getting good jobs. People are coming here, putting in the work. We're helping with them network to try to get. It is my job. Would I love to keep everybody around? Absolutely. I don't want them to go, but I get it. And it's my job as a leader to give them the tools and allow them to grow and try to help them. And 20 years from now, hopefully I'm sitting back and like, man, they work for me, and so-and-so work for me.
Joe Castiglione.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, Mitch has a tree, and Kevin's got a tree. They all have their, and so certainly, I want to be able to have that and have that impact.
Yeah, I think the key, I might have said this to you before when we interviewed before, but I say this a lot, is that leaders have to ask themselves, is working for me more than just another paycheck, right? Yep. Like, you can get what I pay you somewhere else, but when you're here, do you feel like you're getting a lot for it and moving on?
Yep.
In the profession? That's what he's doing.
Yeah, and we try to give them advice. I mean, we have a number of people that have other opportunities, even right now, and is it worth the kind of the risk of the unknown of the new job for maybe $5,000 or $10,000 more, where you kind of know your culture here and how we lead, and then, okay, let's talk about how you can grow and how you can, what other things can we maybe add to your plate? Can we change our job description to help you maybe financially a little bit more, or give you a better title? And we're willing at a place like Eastern Michigan, we have the flexibility to maneuver some of those things to help, because our staff's small. I don't have 100 employees. I mean, we have the smallest in the MAC, and I think you're going to see Julie Cromer soon, and she'll argue she has the smallest staff. So it's between her and I, depending on the day, between Ohio and us. Yeah. So, but yeah, to me, you want to make sure wherever you go, you're not going to second guess yourself. Right. And then I also tell people, you should never have to ask for a raise. You know what I mean? I think, to me, you work hard. We recognize who's working hard. Right now, most people aren't getting raises. Eastern hasn't given raises in 2 years. And that's the nature of with COVID and everything else going on. But again, we care about you, and at least I have that right to give them.
That is a question I had for you, actually. When you talk about you shouldn't have to ask for a raise, is celebrating your staff, celebrating in the moment, right? And as a leader, you know, if you only evaluate once a year, you probably could have been messing up for the whole last year, and then we find out at the end of the year. But if we're constantly evaluating, there are reasons to either coach someone up or celebrate something someone has did. Do you have things in place, or is it just a personal celebration of someone who has done something, senior staff, mid-level staff, entry level?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I probably could do a little better job of this. I personally feel like I'm somebody that has I try to have a relationship with just about everybody on our staff. You want to have it with everybody, and obviously, I met with with Elizabeth, our new associate AD for our student athlete support services, our academic side, and she's been here since April. And this was our first face-to-face meeting. And I said, this is not how I usually work.
Yeah.
I mean, normally I want to have interaction, just want to know about you and your family. Have you found a house? I mean, all this fun stuff and getting to know them. And so I don't feel like I've done a good job there. But in the celebrating our staff, I reach out, and I try to we're celebrating kids this year. There's a theme. We have 12 pregnancies in our department.
Wow.
For due in 2021.
Man.
And so I think we're at 8 right now. We still got 4 more to go. And trying to reach out, checking on, mom and baby and seeing how everybody's doing. And, just being more of that personal touch, picking up the phone and making a quick call and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I really appreciate all the hard work you've done, especially when you think about media relations is running wild and they're testing. And then we have our sports medicine that they're contact tracing and they're swabbing and doing stuff that's totally not been in their realm. And now they're extending their hours because you can't see as many people. And then our strength staff. So you could kind of go through the list, and you're here today and it's really quiet because we've told people they need to get a break, and try to get them away. Those are the way that I kind of celebrate. Though the way that they know I care is, hey, get out of the office, go be with your family. They know that I'll talk to the coaches, and I do it in front of them, that you need to give them a break. And that takes a lot of weight off their shoulders. So I do more of that as opposed to an employee of the week or an employee of the month, or because what happens is I try to have more one-on-one because I may forget somebody, and I could sit here and name off all the different areas, and then I forgot one other person, like he didn't even mention me.
Right.
And so it's like, man, what I do. So I try not to do that, but there's some things that we can do. And then welcoming people is really important to me. So any new staff, we do a new Eagles before every staff meeting, which really sucked on Zoom, I got to tell you. Because nobody, unless they say hi and wave, nobody knows. And there's like 5 screens of bubbles here. And it's like,
right, exactly.
And so I would rather it be in person and have them stand up, introduce yourself. Where'd you come from? Welcome to the team. If you need anything, oh, so-and-so, we just can't do that.
Yeah.
And so
it's interesting. You don't want to do a employee of the week because you're not evaluating everybody by the same things, right? And so then people are like, well, how did that I've been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the one-on-one thing makes everybody feel valued. That's an excellent.
Yeah. And I think, and they know my door is open. So some take advantage of it. I kind of know who my, 5 or 6 are like, hey, can we go have coffee, or can we go grab lunch? And, and I probably need to do a better job on the flip side of that, of, grabbing a coach and saying, hey, let's go get lunch today and just tell me how things are going. And again, so I'm actually looking forward to that interaction again, for
right,
sure.
Getting back on campus.
Yep.
Now, and when you talk about the industry, you talk about the people, there are a lot of people retiring or just getting out of the AD chair. They may still be in athletics in some third-party periphery type company, but they are leaving the AD chair, and there are a lot of new people coming into the AD chair. And one thing Terry Toomey said in that interview was he's happy about it because there's a different complexion of the people taking over the chair, right? And different age, right? A lot of the people, and a lot of these elephants are retiring. These people have been in the industry for a long time and have led us in the industry, develop other leaders. You mentioned Mitch and other type people. I wonder about your opinion on that. It's probably more than just retirement. I mean, the industry is a tough one because of
Yeah.
the financial model. So I wonder about your opinion on people leaving. And
Yeah, it's actually, I shared with my president. There was one Friday, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, where it was like somebody got let go, a couple of others retiring, and then it's like 2 days later, there's two more, and it's like, man, we're really starting to churn through this. And I saw a stat where, normally in a normal year, it's 40 Division I athletic directors, and there's an anticipation of 70 or 80, almost double,
yeah,
as is the trajectory we're on. And there is good and bad, because when you say elephant, I look at them as giants, right? These are people that I've looked up to just getting into the industry that are now saying, you know what, it's my time to step aside. And I think a couple things have happened. One, I think the last 16 to 18 months have really changed the mindset of some.
perspective.
And perspective. They've been home with their families a lot more. They figured out a new way of kind of doing business that's not necessarily, you mean I don't have to come in at 6 a.m. and stay till 6 p.m. or whatever that is. And then being a little more selective with events and those. So it's good and bad, and to me, change is always good. We always got to keep the wheel moving. We got to keep moving forward. I think the dynamics and the diversification of our industry is finally taking shape, and we're starting to see that. And I think Terry mentioned that. And it's also scary because it's a lot of us in the group of five are typically, it's our first job being an athletic director, having the opportunity. And we're probably that next wave to sit in that Power 5 chair and to have that opportunity and lead. But those are big shoes to fill. And but I think we're ready. We want to be aggressive, and it's a new day with social media and everything. We always talk about, like, man, I can't believe what it would have been like had I had social media when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Or even for me, even a cell phone or anything.
Right,
and how different it is now, and the kids growing up. So I get it. I think and then I think with the transfer portal, the name, image, and likeness, and the uncertainties around it and what it's going to look like, I think a lot of them are like, you know what, before we get too far into that, why don't I step aside, let somebody else that maybe will understand it more, be able to take better advantage of it. Maybe it's my time to do that. And so I think that's why we're.
What's interesting about what you just said, I had a thought. And, in any industry, profession, even mentorships or even individual positions, someone who was in it before, they can become a mentor and give you advice, right? Some of these people who are leaving, they probably couldn't give you advice on some of the new things, the trends that are coming. But the one thing that hasn't changed is leading people in relationships, right? I got to make a change. I got to hire somebody. I got to figure out how to put this culture in place, develop these core values of the organization. That won't change. You got to be able to do it, which is why I stick to leadership as far as a topic when I'm talking to somebody. But that won't change. I wonder if you have any thoughts.
No, exactly. And I think that's why so many former athletic directors become consultants, because we still need that help. And at the end of the day, you're right. If we're going to lead, it's relationship driven, and you don't have to reinvent that part. Yes, the technology of things may have changed. The communication path may have changed. But we certainly have, going back to leadership styles still don't change. I think we've evolved. I think we're a less dictator, this is my way or the highway, to more of an inclusive, loving, caring. I try to be a hugger in all fairness, in a good way.
Yeah, right.
And people know that I care. And so I think that's part of that changing of the guard. And you still hear some that'll say, well, I'm still old school, but again, their leadership isn't, they're still, they had relationships. They knew how to build a good team, put together, you hire good people and let them do their jobs. That part hasn't changed. It's just the people may look a little different now because they have a different mindset or a different tool that we maybe didn't need before.
Yeah. And those are the adjustments we
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean, you
make
think of analytics in
exactly.
baseball, football, basketball, and the data now with it. They just, hey, before it was roll out the ball and who's most competitive and
Right.
and do that. But now it's like, okay, who's shooting from where, or what's their velocity, what's the exit speed? I mean, and so then somebody else is educated more in that area and is a specialist in that, which wasn't necessary. They were a specialist in something else before. So,
but then the leaders have to come in and say, well, how is he or she with their teammates? You know what I mean? Are they influential? Right, exactly, right. Are they just a number? Do they put up a lot of numbers, but are they a cancer in the locker room, or do they help everybody get better kind of situation?
Yeah, I would rather have a group full of character kids that work hard, are giving everything they have, than having, a one-off, 35-point scorer or a quarterback that can sling it everywhere, but that doesn't get along with anybody, right?
Nobody wants to play with that.
It's a whole culture, and you don't want to sell yourself for that.
Right. Along those lines, I'll ask this one question and then we'll wrap. It's something we talk about at AthleticDirectorU. We actually want to ask everybody in the industry, leaders like yourself, and this, I guess you kind of answered it, but your thoughts on the future of college athletics, right? In general, in terms of where you'd like to see it go, right? What you'd like to see in the future of college athletics.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to continue to change drastically. And I think we're in a 5-year period that is going to be a monster shift. And some of it's not bad, and some of it's really scary, and a lot of it is the unknowns. But the industry is in a big kind of state of flux right now, and I wish I had a crystal ball to know, because then it may help with my own personal decisions on what I think would be most beneficial and how we can capitalize on it and those things. But I'm worried that, just like this virus, one minute we're saying one thing and then we pivot and do something else, and then we pivot again, right? We cancel a football season, and oh, wait a minute, we're going to bring a football season back. Oh, wait, we're going to move volleyball and soccer to the and it was like every 2 weeks I felt like I was telling a lie, because then the 2 weeks later it was something different. Those are the things that concern me. I don't want to get into pay for play.
Yeah, right.
I certainly feel like, I have creative kids. My son is, got his own website that he's working on, and he's created a bot, but he's a heck of a runner too. Well, he should be able to, if he's got 500,000 followers and comes to Eastern Michigan to run, he should be able to benefit from that, just like the student, that the other general students. So I have no qualms with that. I think I worry about the recruiting lines and the blurring and the stories of, oh, I've heard so-and-so already has $10,000 a month lined up and he's going to be on a billboard, and because somebody's going to sponsor him, and like, well, how many of those are out? And then what happens when he's not as good as you thought he was, and he thought it was a 4-year deal? And, and then in the state of Michigan, it's supposed to be, well, they have to give us 7 days notice who they're signing with. Well, I mean, it should be their right to kind of do what they want. And why would I control it? And so there's a lot of that.
So much to think about.
And so it actually just gives me a headache thinking about it. So I'm going to roll with the punches, go with the flow, try to make adjustments, and then try to make the best decisions where I'm at and where I'm planted to help our student athletes. And that's got to be my concern. I obviously, from a national perspective, if I'm on a board or on a committee, I'll certainly try to help have that forward thinking and be proactive instead of reactive. But right now I'm going to be a little more reactive, just because I'm kind of like, what is it going to look like with it all? And it's a little worrisome, to be honest, and just being transparent.
Yeah, it's worrisome. And I mean, I guess part of it could be exciting, because you're a leader and things are evolving. Yeah. So you got to evolve too, in terms of what happens in the industry.
Yeah. To me, that's where great leadership steps up.
Exactly.
I'm not going to run from it now, but I can also, people know I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'll be that way. Yeah. And so, it might be tough, and you may see it on my face a little bit, but we're going to get better. We're going to still figure it out, and we're going to make it and be successful. Just got to figure out what path is it right now?
How to do it, and how does it tie to making sure that the student athletes are champions for life.
Yeah, there you go. See, you summed it up for me. That's awesome.
Well, Scott, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you having me here on campus at Eastern Michigan and joining us on Athletic Director.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. That was Scott Wetherbee. He is the Vice President and Director of Athletics here at Eastern Michigan University. And of course, I am Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.